2.5 miles, at the bottom of the North Atlantic's, the royal ship Titanic sleeps peacefully. The Titanic was on its maiden voyage from Southampton, England, to New York City when it hit an iceberg off Newfoundland in the North Atlantic on April 15, 1912. The luxury ocean liner sank within hours, killing about 1,500 people. The Titanic has been extensively explored since the wreck was discovered in 1985. The RMS Titanic's final resting spot is approximately 370 miles off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada in the North Atlantic Ocean. Titanic was designed to remain afloat if any two of its 16 compartments were flooded or if the first four were flooded. The bow and stern section lie 2.5 miles down, 12,460 feet, below the ocean surface. Titanic lies in two pieces approximately 1,900 feet apart. Titanic's vessel featured 16 watertight compartments with steel doors designed to close within 25 seconds, keep any flooding out of the ship's interior. It was tradition to break a bottle of champagne on the boat when it launched. But Titanic's launch did not include the traditional breaking of the bottle. The reason the Titanic is often referred to as RMS Titanic is because the RMS stands for Royal Mail Steamer. As well as passengers, the ship carried nearly 3,500 sacks of letters, packages, and documents. The bow and stern sections of Titanic face opposite directions and are 1,970 feet apart from each other. The Titanic's promenade deck afforded first-class passengers the opportunity to stroll about the ship, socialize, or simply lounge in deck chairs. Not only was the deck truly spacious, but half the length was enclosed by glass windows for protection against inclement weather. The upper row of windows protected Titanic's first-class promenade deck from heavy weather, while the lower row of glass looked into her first-class suites. There were over 2,000 porthole windows on the Titanic and over 3 million rivets. This is the view of the Titanic midship facing aft, showing part of a first-class balcony. The bulk of first-class facilities and accommodation was located on the upper decks within the superstructure of the Titanic, where the vibrations and noise of the engines were at their lowest. The anchor chains are still fully in place, weighing a total of 96 tons. Each link approximately weighs in at 200 pounds. The anchor chains are moving towards the windlasses where they would have pulled them back down into the chain locker at the bottom of the ship. Below this open hatch ship's numerous cargo spaces. The steam winch at the base of the mast was used to manipulate cargo down the number 1 cargo hatch. This cargo hatch is both eerie and surreal. On Titanic's maiden voyage, it carried general cargo including cheese, rubber goods, and a quantity of old oak beams, among other things. The winches lay beneath the fallen forward mast. Titanic carried thousands of mail sacks bound for North America, as well as several mail clerks who were charged with getting this precious cargo to its final destination. The windlass gear was located on sea deck, just beneath the forecastle deck. It is a capstan with a horizontal drum and was used to lower and bring up the chains for the anchors. Titanic had 2 windlasses and it turned around a vertical axis. Power to the windlass was supplied by a steam engine. The partly collapsed bathroom of Captain Edward Smith, with the bathtub now filled with rusticles. His bedroom was in the empty space to the right. A recent expedition revealed that the roof of the officer quarters had collapsed, almost entirely covering the bath. Titanic's capstans had vertical drums, ribbed for traction, and turned by a steam engine. It was a mechanical device with a spinning vertical cylinder that was used on Titanic for pulling heavy objects such as an anchor with a rope or cable. A capstan is similar to a windlass, but unlike windlass, it rotates in a horizontal plane and around a vertical axis. Another bronze capstan comes into view. On top of that is a memorial plaque, and that was left on a previous expedition. The grand staircase goes down several decks. It rose through 6 decks and was topped by a dome of iron and glass. It was a luxurious and grandiose staircase. The staircase was designed to be the main entrance for first-class passengers. The small wall there on the right is actually the entrance to the grand staircase first-class entrance, which brought you into the grand staircase area. Titanic was propelled by 3 massive steam engines. Twin engines, shown here as an optical mosaic of 2 of Titanic's 3 engines, which together produced over 50,000 horsepower. These high-pressure cylinders stand 3 stories tall. There were 2 reciprocating units that drove the wing propellers, and a separate turbine engine that drove the center propeller. There were 29 boilers on the night of the disaster. All boilers had been allegedly lit. Titanic was not yet up to full power at the time of her collision with the iceberg. 29 boilers divided into 6 boiler rooms producing steam-powered Titanic's engines. 6,000 tons of coal were needed to propel the ship. Every pound was hand-shoveled into the furnaces by hundreds of stokers called the Black Gang. Stokers in boiler room number 6 were the first to experience flooding from the collision. Of Titanic's 29 boilers, 24 were double-ended and 5 single-ended. Altogether, they contained a total of 159 furnaces to heat water and send the steam to the reciprocating engines. The boilers were 15.7 feet in diameter and each weighing 91.5 tons and capable of holding 48.5 tons of water. The bridge deck on the Titanic was the highest deck on the ship that was open to passengers. It was located above the boat deck, was also where the ship's wheelhouse was located. The thin strip of metal sticking straight out is all that remains of the bridge flooring. The whole area of the bridge on the Titanic was made out of timber and it got destroyed in the sinking, and all that has left in that whole area is the bronze telemotor. The telemotor was a pump that the main wheel was attached to, and when the wheel was turned it helped the rudder to change the direction. The back wall had the control panels to lower the watertight doors and phones to answer the lookouts. Titanic telemotor was manufactured in Edinburgh. Titanic was equipped with 3 helms, or steering wheels. The telemotor for the main helm of Titanic, located within the wheelhouse on the bridge. The wheelhouse was used to steer the ship. This room was located on the boat deck. It was behind the bridge and forward of the officers' quarters. The officers' cabins located on the starboard boat deck. Excluding the top of the officers' quarters, there were 11 decks on Titanic, of which 8 were designed for passenger accommodation, public rooms, dining, and promenading. First-class passengers enjoyed luxurious amenities including a heated swimming pool, Turkish baths, and a film screening room. Turkish baths, ceramic tiles framed in durable teak shimmer in the first-class spa. The Turkish baths were an exclusive first-class accommodation of the Titanic. The baths were designed in a Moorish style. There was a temperate room, cool room, hot room, steam room, electric bath, and 2 shampoo rooms where massage was performed. They were located on F deck between the swimming bath and the third-class dining room. The baths were segregated by sex, available to women between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., and to men between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. There was a charge of 4 shillings or $1 per person for admission. The entirety of a deck was devoted to first-class recreation accommodation, along with most of B and C decks. The massive electric cargo cranes effortlessly loaded the passengers' baggage into the cargo holds. The Titanic had several types of gratings, including those for ventilation, drainage, and access to various compartments. The ventilation systems were also designed to be completely separate from the ship's heating and cooling systems. One curious item discovered in the wreck is a room heater in the forward well deck. There has been speculation that it was originally from Captain Smith's sitting room. This is one of dozens of cut glass window screens from the first-class dining room. They were designed to hide the moving horizon out the porthole and reinforce the illusion of a country house gone to sea. A double-bottom hull piece. Two sections of Titanic's double-bottom hull ripped off the stern as it sank. This is the portside anchor. The anchors on Titanic appear to almost be touching the ocean floor, due to the fact that the bow section is buried 60 feet in sediment. Weeping Rusticles, a 15-ton anchor hangs from the port side of the ship. The starboard anchor was deployed for stop, but this one was never used. The Titanic had a total of over 371 first-class staterooms. The cheapest first-class fare could be had for £23 without meals. The doors and windows lead into first-class luxury suites. The first-class passengers on the Titanic could go swimming in the pool for 25 cents each. The pool was filled with seawater. Titanic's third-class accommodations were located on E, F, and G decks forward and D, E, F, and G decks aft, well down in the ship. Mechanical arms, known as davits, lifted and lowered loaded lifeboats into the water. Lifeboats had to be within reach of these davits to be effective, thus rendering two of the collapsibles stowed on the roof of the officers' quarters essentially useless. Unfortunately, the Titanic had originally planned for 64 lifeboats but ended up with 16. Also, Titanic had 3,560 life jackets and 49 life buoys. At full capacity, the lifeboats on Titanic could accommodate 1,178 people. 705 were rescued from the lifeboats by Carpathia. After the 13 rescued lifeboats from Titanic were returned to New York by Carpathia, their flags and nameplates were removed. Their whereabouts are a mystery. On April 15, 1912, lifeboat number 6 was the first lifeboat lowered on the port side. The boat carried only 28 people, 37 fewer than what could have been accommodated. Even if all 20 lifeboats on the Titanic had been filled to capacity, there would only have been room in them for 1,178 people. This shows a row of bottles, a stockpot, and a tip basin. The basin would have been part of a cabinet with a water tank. When passengers finished washing, they folded this sink into the cabinet to save space. The used water in the sink drained into a second tank, which was later emptied by a steward. When the Titanic broke herself apart, she drained all form of debris upon the ocean floor. Attached to each of the funnels was a set of whistles. In the case of thick weather, these whistles could be automatically timed to blow for 8 to 10 seconds every minute. A single davit survives on the deck above the promenade. A davit is any of various crane-like devices used on a ship for supporting, raising, and lowering equipment such as boats and anchors. Two such small cranes, one at each end, were needed to lower a lifeboat to the sea. The Titanic was fitted with 16 sets of double-acting boat davits of modern type, capable of handling 2 or 3 boats per set of davits. The davits were thus capable of handling 48 boats, whereas the ship carried but just 16 lifeboats and 4 collapsibles. On the aft section of the boat deck and a deck promenade, the ship's mast, though crumpled, is still attached. The ship's crow's nest, where crew member Frederick Fleet first spotted history's most infamous iceberg, is now missing from the ship's toppled forward mast. All that remains of the number 1 funnel is this oval smoke uptake. The crow's nest is located high on the main mast. It is a lookout post to get the farthest possible view of land or other ships. When Titanic sailed from Southampton her maiden voyage, the lookouts were without binoculars. The ship wreckage is now covered with what look like rusty icicles, called rusticles. These formations are actually communities of bacteria that slowly eat away at the ship's iron and give the shipwreck its melting appearance. The fiddly grates allowed fresh air to come into the boiler rooms and helped pull stale air out to try and make a better working environment for the stokers. It is located beneath the funnels. They had grating tops and housed the ladders that ran from the boiler rooms up to the boat deck. The Titanic also had a number of ventilator shafts, which were tall metal tubes that extended from the ship's upper deck down to the lower decks. The first skylight actually leads into the officers' washroom. The second skylight belongs to Titanic's wireless room. The wireless cabin had 3 rooms on board Titanic. One room was sleeping quarters, another was a machine room, and the third was a dynamo room. No fewer than 6 messages warning of icebergs were received by the Titanic's Marconi radio operators. The first 2 of these messages were relayed to Captain Edward Smith. The last 4, however, were never brought to his attention. The final warning was received at 11:30 p.m., a mere 9 minutes before Titanic's death blow. In 1912, it cost $3 to send a wireless message with 10 words. We are now approaching to the reading and writing room area, as well as the first-class lounge. This is also the area where the ship was broken into. So, most of this place has been completely destroyed and difficult to make out. The second funnel, which was situated on the left-hand side, is a void now. Beyond that, there's nothing but collapsed decks all the way down to the seafloor. We're now on the seafloor, near the broken area, with many unrecognizable pieces of the ship all around us. We're making our way towards the section that broke off. That is of the double-ended Scotch boilers that produced the steam that drove the huge engines for Titanic. These boilers weighed around 90 tons each. This gives you a greater overview as they still are in position here where the ship is broken. Objects from Titanic's galleys lay in the debris field between the 2 pieces of the ship. The Titanic debris field between the bow and stern is known as the breakup area. This is where the Titanic broke into 2 pieces. The ship separated between the 3rd and 4th funnels, which cut through the 1st and 2nd class galleys and pantries. The breakup area is located about 0.6 miles apart from each other and is spread over an area of about 3 square miles. As the Titanic broke apart, many objects and pieces of hull were scattered across the seabed. It consists of thousands of objects from the interior of the ship. The wreckage includes various parts of the ship, such as the boilers, engines, propeller, and parts of the hull. There are also numerous personal artifacts, such as shoes, clothing, suitcases, and other items that belong to the passengers and crew. Debris abound in the so-called Hell's Kitchen, an area of the seabed scattered with broken china pots, pans, other cooking tools. Another debris-rich area is the coalfields, which features a large quantity of the black combustible. Also, deckhouse debris, a 60-foot-long chunk of the side of the ship, 5 of the ship's huge boilers, and pieces of the ship's bottom. This is the Titanic's stern. It is barely recognizable as a ship, unlike the bow. The Titanic's stern section is the rear part of the ship that broke off from the bow section when the Titanic sank after colliding with an iceberg. The stern is located about 2,000 feet away from the bow section on the seafloor, at a depth of about 12,500 feet. The stern, which has separated from the bow, is a chaotic tangle of steel. The stern of the ship, which measures about 350 feet long, was catastrophically damaged during the descent and landing on the seabed. The stern is much more damaged than the bow, as it was torn apart by the immense forces of the sinking and imploded on its way down. It had not fully filled with water when it sank, and the increasing water pressure caused trapped air pockets to implode, tearing apart the hull. The stern corkscrewed into the seabed as it plunged into the depths. The stern was the last part of the ship to sink, as it rose up in the air before breaking off from the bow. Most of the debris is concentrated near the stern section of the Titanic. The stern is also more scattered and covered by debris than the bow. The largest pieces of debris in the vicinity of the partially disintegrated stern section.